The Accidental Entrepreneur is produced by Beinhacker Law and brought to you through our affiliate relationships with the following sponsors. One of One Productions, the New Jersey-based podcast studio that produces and edits both audio and video podcasts. They sell equipment for the average podcaster and have even created a guesting kit exclusively for our listeners. North Authentic, the conscious hair care marketplace offering the cleanest brands from around the world. The Healthy Place, the e-commerce site with thousands of supplements to help you live a healthier life, along with natural solutions for chronic pain, stress, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, and much, much more. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services.
So Jeff, has a global reach, and then they have all this data of that.
Right, that's another thing
building
right
every day on customer, customer preferences, customer profiles, real estate demographics, usage behavior. So you're building this robust data set that helps you, target market in a much richer, and all that's passed on to the franchisees. So you have this global reach of customers, and that you can never get on your own as a local independent operator. And then you can use all that, but then on the flip side, the franchisees provide a lot of value because they provide
boots on the ground.
They provide what a big operation can.
Right.
They talk to you as a customer one-on-one. You want your clothes folded a certain way. You want a special detergent used. You want to know that your kids' uniforms are going to be ready for their game. All right, I'm going to make sure that this is done. You need your clothes picked up and delivered. All these types of things, they can execute really, really well. And a big national, regional, or international company, it's very hard to execute that.
Right.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Hi, Peter Stern. I'm Managing Director of Mr. Jeff. Happy to be on the podcast today.
All right. So, Mr. Jeff, not really Mr. Jeff. We're going to clear that up. You said you go everywhere and you're Peter and everybody's like, who's Mr. Jeff? So he'll explain that to you. But we're going to talk today about, your background and everything and also what's going on. But this is kind of like the anatomy of a franchisor. I mean, you're starting this thing up here and you're growing it. And the laundry business is an interesting business because there's a lot of things going on in your industry that pandemic related and other things like that. So maybe we can go back, Peter, and you can kind of talk about, where you're from, training was. I know you worked in corporate for a while, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Well, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
Yes, it's been a interesting journey for me in life and in my career. So I started, had a finance background, started on the consulting side of PricewaterhouseCoopers many, many years ago. And through a mentor of mine that I had interned with throughout college, got introduced to a pretty dynamic entrepreneur who owned the largest chain of laundromats in the U.S. This is going back 20 years.
Okay.
had a meeting with the founder of that company, and I knew nothing about the laundry business. Didn't really understand what I was going to do. I had this connotation and stigma in my head of what I thought the laundry business was, and then
what were you introduced to him for?
So he was looking to do a massive national consolidation retail roll-up in the industry at that time. You know, so you're going back to the mid 90s where this was done in many other retail industries, whether it be Home Depot in the hardware industry or Blockbuster. And, you know, you had this laundry industry that was hugely fragmented. Independent owner operators, and it was ripe for consolidation. So that was the play at the time, and he was looking for some young talent to come in and help him execute that plan.
Yeah, makes sense. Still a fragmented industry, right?
Still persistent. I call it the last of the Mohicans in terms of fragmentation, and you know, in retail, which has it kept it behind the times in many ways. And I think it's led to this renaissance that we're seeing today, where it's one of the last uncharted, corporatized industries, and leads. There's a lot of detriments, but which also creates a lot of opportunity, where now you're seeing huge attention to it, capital infusions. There's a lot of things about the industry that, where many years ago it had a stigma, that today are very appealing. The real estate, it's very low default, stable cash flows, recession proof, Amazon proof. I mean, it's everything proof. We've last 20 years, we've seen, the Great Recession, almost a financial blow up of the system. You've seen Amazon effects. You've seen 9/11, and the laundry business has only gotten stronger.
Right. Well, people still wear clothes, especially if they rent places, right? They're renters. They don't necessarily have a wash and dryer in their apartment. They're going to go and do laundry. It doesn't matter what's going on. Even if they're in the pandemic, you might not be going to your dry cleaner, but you're wearing clothes.
It's an essential daily need. And, it's not going away. Like you said, during the pandemic, dry cleaners got hurt, but laundry just continued to pile up. It became, more and more.
No pun intended.
It became more of a necessity. And what you've seen in recent years is a huge shift and trend towards the service end of the business, the wash and fold.
Right.
So where dry cleaners got hurt, even before the pandemic, clothing was getting more and more casual. So you had less dry cleaning, but more regular clothes.
Even business shirts don't get dry cleaned, right? They get washed and pressed. So if you're not going to your dry cleaner with dry cleaning, why are you going to pay? It's more money you're paying really to get the shirts washed in laundry.
Yeah. So you've seen this trend, developing over the years, and there's been a lot of attention paid towards it, and that's where a lot of tech and innovation and attention is going to space. I think also the younger generation has really they get a bad rap for a lot of things. We condemn them for their work ethic and the different way they do things. But the one thing that I think that they've taught, at least me, and I think we should all take heed of, is they've really figured out what the most valuable commodity on earth is, and that's your time.
Right.
And that's something that I look to that they've really shown me, and time with family, time doing activities that you like, time even from this new gig economy. They would rather be earning money rather than doing a chore like doing laundry. So with this, less and less of it started with the younger generation, but I think it applies to dual income families, busy with kids. Right. Everybody is time poor these days. and, which has created this huge growth in the sector of my industry, which used to not get a lot of attention, but that's the service sector and the wash and fold.
Right.
So more and more people don't want to do their own laundry. They want a good, reliable service to either drop it off at a store or somebody even come to their home, pick it up.
Right. Well, I told you, and I want to get back to what happened with this company and so forth, but I told you I have 2 kids in college and they have these services now. So nobody wants to send your kid on a Friday night to sit in the laundromat to do his laundry. That was like an activity when I was in college, That's how you'd meet people, but you're always worried somebody's stealing your clothes and this and that. So parents don't want the stress. So now they have these services where they have a bag, a van comes, picks it up. There's an app. You can follow where the van is. The parents pay an automatic fee for a certain amount of poundage. And, you have a peace of mind of knowing that it's done. And then you don't have to worry about your kid getting mugged at the laundromat downtown, wherever it's located. And, it works. And it's a big moneymaker for these services.
Yeah, I go even beyond that. It's going to start with the college kids and young working professionals. But I always use the analogy when I grew up in the suburbs of New York in the 80s. It wasn't uncommon to see, everyone out doing their own landscaping, mowing their own lawns. It was like a tradition. And then you saw a lot of landscaping companies pop up, and they had a routine service, weekly landscaping service. And now it's basically obsolete. It's very rare that you'll see somebody doing their own landscaping.
Right.
I think the same is going to be true for laundry. I think within the next decade, you'll see very few people doing their own laundry in their homes. They might have they'll have machines still, I think, and they'll do small loads or towels, stuff that, is very easy to not. But I think the bulk of the laundry will be outsourced. And I think that's hard for people to imagine because we get so caught up in the status quo of what is that we can't imagine things differently. But once they change, look at these things.
Yeah, the whole world's changed.
A decade ago,
it's a new paradigm. Yeah,
the world has changed. So I see that. I see that coming on the horizon, and want to participate in that growth and innovation and so forth.
Okay, so let's go back the 20 years back. So did you join this guy?
Yeah. Okay. So I came on board full-time with the organization, and
because obviously technology in those days was different, right?
Sure. We still had stores that operated with coins in the machines. Right. We were one of the early adopters back then of the card system, which was revolutionary, which is now archaic. So, now everything's going much more towards mobile and app pay. Still not in this industry yet, but it's coming. So, we're still coin operated. And because the industry was so fragmented, even stuff that existed, in just rudimentary form, like POS systems and business management systems that were digitized at that time, didn't exist in the industry. So we were one of the few large scale multi-unit operators. So there was nothing built for us. And it's not efficient to build technology. We weren't big enough, while we were big for this industry, we were minuscule compared to other mass retail. So it wasn't really efficient to build our own technology systems. So we built these ad hoc, like manual systems to run multi-unit the best that we could, but it was really bootstrapped together.
Sure. Well, even now that's become inexpensive. I remember it was $500,000 to do an app for your company.
Right.
And I remember I had I was running like an entrepreneurs academy for high school and middle school kids. And there was a kid who was doing, I forget what the business was, but it involved an app that was going to run the business. So there was a guy on this panel because they would have kind of like a Shark Tank presentation to business owners. So the kid gets up, knew all of his numbers and everything like that. And one of the criticisms, one of the panelists was like, how are you going to do that app? It's going to cost you like $150,000. And the kid's response was, no, it won't. It's only $500. And you get, and the guy was totally out of tune. I guess the last time he did it for his company cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So, and he just absolutely didn't accept that. He was like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So, and just like building a website, right? It's all changed. The technology, there are now tools to do it. So it becomes, I guess, more of a, it fits the business plan, right? It's now something that's doable and cost effective.
Yeah. And I think that that's where all the excitement, and that's why you're seeing a lot of capital and you're seeing a lot of startups come into the business. I didn't mention this in the intro, but a few years ago, the founder of Laundry Capital Clean Right, where I started 20 years ago, he and I got together and we actually started a venture capital fund to support, guide, mentor, provide capital for a lot of these young tech savvy entrepreneurs wanting to get into this business because they saw all the white space here. And we felt that we could be a good value add partner, not just with capital, but with experience. And
kind of like a private equity incubator type of thing.
Correct.
Take ownership, joint ownership with them.
Yeah, and then we also had this huge network and lab of stores that we could pilot things and experiment with, and then also understood the landmines in the industry, understood the network and who the players were. So and that actually we made some really good investments, and that led us to find Mr. Jeff, who I'm with now, who we made a substantial.
So incubators are good. They're kind of like little, seedlings that you grow, and then you're like, oh, that one's a good one.
Right.
So you sold you and this guy, you sold the first company that you were in?
No. The first company's still in existence. More of a old line operating company, traditional multi-unit, big box laundromats. So that was part of the problem, is that we had this big balance sheet heavy operating company that had been operating for 25 years, and in a lot of ways, we saw change coming in the industry, but it's always hard because you're almost disrupting yourself, and there's a conflict there, and there's a push and pull.
And there's a cost, right?
So it became we tried internally to do things, but we didn't have software engineers on staff. We weren't tech savvy, and there's always resistance to change. So after trying and burning through some capital, our own internally, and learning from mistakes, we said, we're not going to be able to do this on our own. And then let's go out and team up with some people that this is their core competency. This is their sweet spot. They have the tech. We have the industry knowledge. Let's do it in a separate entity, no conflicts, and get off to the races.
I'm always interested about the logistics of a brick and mortar business like that. Was it regional? I mean, did you have national? Did you guys own businesses all over the country? And then how do you collect all the money? It wasn't all electronic in those days. So
it started regional, started in New York.
Okay.
Expanded through the boroughs of New York. There was another big chain started by the Blockbuster Group called Laundromats that went under, and Spin Cycle as well. They wound up going under. We wound up opportunistically acquiring stores there. So we acquired their New England market. We acquired some stores in Philly. But
that was like a bankruptcy acquisition almost, right? I mean, you're talking they were in trouble.
And then we acquired stores in Atlanta. So we started branching out. It's more of a Northeast company. At one time, we had stores in California. Technology didn't really make it efficient back then to run operations in remote markets unless you had a density of stores.
Right.
So we kind of figured out you needed 5 stores, but
in a one particular area.
In one particular area to and then have growth from there. But it's challenging because finding proper real estate, building these stores and ramping it took time.
Yeah.
So, from finding a good location, signing a lease.
And money, right? You got to buy all the machines, put everything in before you make a dime.
Huge capital investment. Yeah. It's a slow sludge. So, you're either coming into market through acquisition, which is tough because if people have good stores, cash flowing, they typically weren't motivated to sell them.
Right.
And then building the stores, new stores took time and a lot of capital. And, you had to have resources there day one.
Right.
So it was tough to figure out. We do, I do think that with the advent of technology and video solutions and auditing tools and AI management systems, there is, I think it's more amenable to just popping a store in a remote market. And
well, a lot of it was cash in those days, right? So the only way to really track was to kind of look at your water bill and say, okay, well, we know how many loads are being done and this is what it should be, right? I mean,
yeah, you can. Yeah, there are good ways to know what your cash should be. Even when we went to all card systems, you still had to rely on somebody physically making cash drops. And listen, it was a lot of cash. And when people get their eyes on a lot of cash, there's temptation.
That's stealing,
and
sure.
There's human nature. So it's challenging. I think that certainly going to a cashless operation and all app pay and digital transfers is going to make that growth easier.
Yeah, because it's almost a cashless business. I mean, because, when you're a large organization, you're not looking to hide cash anyway. You're a local mom and pop shop. You're probably hiding a lot of your cash and, zeroing out your income. You're not going to do that at a large corporation.
That's been the biggest challenge to change in this industry is listen, there are a lot of people content with keeping the business offline and, less transparent and less tools and less visibility. We were audited by Ernst & Young in the early days. We ran everything by the book. So we didn't have those motivators to keep it. We wanted to legitimize the business, right. But you're competing against people that didn't.
Right. Well, I would think though, if you're, I don't want to give too much credit. IRS agents aren't the brightest people in the world, so probably some listening and pissed at me. But
I'm gonna just for all those listening, I think you are incredibly bright and resilient and doing a hell of a job.
Right. Exactly. Well, you could So you could pull water bills, utility bills. I think they did that with pizza places. They pulled the number of boxes they were buying and they could just look and say, okay, well, if you had 400 pizza boxes and you only have cash in the bank for 100, you're obviously hiding money.
I advise, throughout the years, everyone's wanted to get into this business. They all have, heard about the returns and right. Their uncle owned a laundromat or something. So, I acquired, a lot of laundromats over the years. And I acquired a market down in Atlanta, 5 stores, didn't even visit the stores. And the P&Ls that the operators provided were meaningless to me. It was, there was a way to do due diligence that was.
If you know the business.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So then take me through. You were with them, and then you met Jeff because you started the private equity incubator, we'll call it, right? And yeah. So
we were. I was blown away. Jeff had,
There is a Jeff, right?
So Mr. Jeff is not a real person. When I go to trade shows and stuff, I usually play the game. I make people guess, why Mr. Jeff.
Right.
So So we have other verticals besides laundry. Laundry is our main vertical, but it's based around supporting people's daily needs.
Uh-huh.
So it's named after, and we had an internal guessing game with this too to figure out why the company was named Mr. Jeff. But the company's originated out of Spain, and the founders were big fans of the show The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And if you remember that show, their butler was Jeffrey.
Yeah.
So Mr. Jeff is named after Jeffrey.
That's funny. That's a good piece of trivia.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I remember.
So we came across this company. We were very U.S. centric. Didn't really pay much attention to what was going on around the world. So unfortunately, like most Americans, but when I started doing due diligence for the fund and looking for investments, came across Mr. Jeff and was blown away. I mean, they literally started in 2016. I think started franchising towards the end of 2017.
But not in the U.S., right? They were overseas.
Not in the U.S., internationally, and sold over 2,000 franchise across 30, 40 countries in just a couple of years. Wow. So that growth was staggering. Really impressed. And they had done something that we always saw as a huge opportunity in this business that we as a multi-unit scaled operator really couldn't access and leverage. And that was they focused exclusively on the service side of the business. So they built
wash and fold.
So very small boxes, 500,000 square feet. You could start with just a couple machines and then add machines. So as your business grows, so very low cost of entry, app-based, provided all the technology, all the platform. So they gave all the tools to the entrepreneur to get into business, find a location, build a location, all the marketing tools, all the business management tools, POS system, and all the app related necessities, and put them in business and got them off to the races. So this was something we always knew worked. We saw it in a rudimentary way, whether we sold stores to individual operators,
actual operating stores, right?
Or we did like sublease arrangements or management agreements. We always saw in the hands of a good owner operator, they could take the over-the-counter business to new heights, to the service side of the business.
Right.
We couldn't. A lot of limitations to running that through.
You wanted the local guy skin in the games, and that he's self-motivated.
Business, you got to have the relationship with the customers.
Right.
You got to control the business in the right way, and there's a huge trust factor in laundry.
Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to get into podcasting? Maybe to market your business for your own enjoyment, or because you have a message you want to get out there. One of One Productions is a New Jersey-based studio just over the George Washington Bridge that caters to the booming business of podcasting. They offer a comfortable atmosphere using the latest technology available to record your podcast. And they are a full-service media company offering both audio and video production services, creating both audio and video podcasts as well as video shorts for business and personal use. Professional audio equipment packages are available through their website for all budgets. And be sure to check out their podcast guesting kit, created specially for our listeners. Care for your health, care for the planet, and look flippin' great doing it. North Authentic is a conscious hair care marketplace offering the cleanest brands from around the world. Their pro stylists curate only the most fabulous non-toxic hair products with better-for-you shampoos, serums, masks, and more that actually give you gorgeous hair without hurting your health or the planet. Hey, you've only got one life, one planet, and one glorious mane. Might as well treat them all as best you can, right? Try a 100% clean hair care routine prescribed just for you using their link in the show notes. If you don't see a big, beautiful difference in how your hair looks and feels, you can tell them they're crazy. Do you battle chronic pain, stress, anxiety, or depression? Well, if you take any supplements or you're interested in natural alternatives, you need to know about findyourhealthyplace.com. Find Your Healthy Place has thousands of supplements to help you live a better quality of life, as well as natural solutions for chronic pain, stress, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, and much, much more. Need guidance? Use their live chat feature and talk to a wellness consultant right on their website. And be sure to use our coupon code TAE Podcast for all your purchases to get the best prices at findyourhealthyplace.com. Follow their links in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. Yeah, well, sure. You want to trust your local guy. Look, I think that, and this is a good exercise or analysis, right? If you think about the industry, right, there's not a lot of barriers to the business, right? If you and I wanted to open a laundromat, wash and fold, we could go rent a space, buy a bunch of machines, hire some people, and start marketing and doing stuff. But they built value through all the things that it would take us a lot of work and a lot of difficulty to put in place, the technology, the way they're doing it, probably website marketing, all that type of stuff. So they kind of created value, because a lot of times you look at these franchises and you're like, listen, if I'm buying a franchise, I want to know that a guy opened up down the street without having a franchise that I have an advantage over him because I'm paying you to do that,
Exactly. And that was a struggle. We looked at my prior company, we looked at franchising many, many years ago. Okay. And we actually went through the arduous process of filings and stuff. And we came to that realization the hard way, is that on the self-service side, there really wasn't much value to the brand or to a franchise, because right. Like you said, the Joe's Laundromat down the street, Joe, Jeff, Jim, whatever right. You want to call
Doesn't matter.
Had the same box with, comparable equipment. As long as you kept the store, as long as you had a good location, good layout, kept the right. store clean, and provided.
Start meeting people in the community, and then they want to come to you, and that's it.
There wasn't much differentiation because the customers came in and did their own work. So right. To me, and there's been a big push in franchising now on the self-service side. And I think that a lot of people are missing the boat there, because I think the huge opportunity in franchising is on the service side, because that's where all these things matter. The right. technology matters, the app matters, the logistics, the brand matters, because
convenience. Well, then it becomes a brand, right? It becomes something on the app, and you see it in the name, and then people recognize it. Then it's got value.
Because as opposed to self-service, where customers are doing the work themselves, they trust themselves already. They know right. what detergent they want to use. They know how they want their clothes folded. They know they're not going to lose their stuff. On the service side, that trust is incredibly important. And while many retailers focus on just average ticket, meaning like how much you pay for a service, which could be $30 to $40 in this business, where what they lose sight of in laundry service is the value of what you're leaving with that operation. So if I give you a bag of laundry, could be worth thousands of dollars of right. Merchandise, retail value that I'm leaving, and there's an emotional attachment. So if I give you my favorite T-shirt or my lucky T-shirt from college, or I give you a pair of jeans that fit just well, screwing that up has consequences way past even the monetary value.
Right.
So having a brand that people can rely on and trust is invaluable in this business. And then combining that with all these tools like digital marketing, is huge. That just hasn't been done. Like marketing in general.
I can't think of any time I've ever seen like digital marketing for a local laundromat.
It's been non-existent.
Yeah.
So proficiency in that and knowledge and expertise and giving the platform to a small guy that, these aren't huge marketing spends that you're going to run. You're going to run a $500,000 campaign.
Right.
You're not hiring an agency to do that. The agency's fees, like they're not even going to talk to you.
Right. They're not even interested. You're too small for them.
Yeah, you're too small. So Jeff, has a global reach, and then they have all this data. of that.
Right. That's another thing you don't have. Right.
Every day on customer, customer preferences, customer profiles, real estate demographics, usage behavior. So you're building this robust data set that helps you, target market in a much richer, and all that's passed on to the franchisees. So you have this global reach of customers, and that you can never get on your own as a local independent operator. And then you can use all that, but then on the flip side, the franchisees provide a lot of value because they provide
boots on the ground.
They provide what a big operation can.
Right.
They talk to you as a customer one-on-one. You want your clothes folded a certain way. You want a special detergent used. You want to know that your kids' uniforms are going to be ready for their game. All right, I'm going to make sure that this is done. You need your clothes picked up and delivered. All these types of things, they can execute really, really well. And a big national, regional, or international company, it's very hard to execute that.
Right. So at that point, you had found them, or they found you, and you were just looking to invest with them or help them or mentor them. I mean, you said he's got 2,000 franchise locations. What do you need you guys for?
Came across, read some materials on them, just basically reached out to the CEO cold to start a dialogue. And
they had no presence in the United States, right?
None, but the time, like everything else in life, the timing was great because
they were
when
interested.
They were looking to launch in the U.S. But they understood that the U.S. was very different than international. So they really wanted to partner up with somebody with laundry experience in the U.S. who knew what they were doing.
Right.
So they viewed us as a really good value add investor. So we first came on as an investor, invested through the fund. I also invested personally.
But to build a U.S. operation, or to invest in the whole company?
We invested in the parent company.
Okay.
But part of the agreement was to also help them launch in the U.S. So we began working on that, and as we started preparing and doing our due diligence and doing some initial market outreach, the excitement and momentum just started to grow. We believe the growth in the U.S. is going to be monumental and explosive. So we decided that they needed somebody full-time to lead the effort here in the U.S. So I came on. I left the fund and came on full-time with Jeff to run their U.S. operations.
Yeah. So talk about the logistics or the business planning side of it. They were coming to the U.S. and it's basically they're a new franchisor, right? I mean, none of the filings they did anywhere else counted for anything except maybe they had some of the verbiage, right?
Completely new. We can't use any of the performance overseas.
Right. FDD does not allow you to use their performance data, right? Nothing.
Can't talk about it. So it's challenging to launch a new franchise in the U.S. and that's exactly what we are, as opposed to internationally you could talk about all your success.
They have looser rules.
Yeah, you get, it's really strict here in the U.S. So to a large extent, we're brand new. If I'm talking to you as a new franchisee, I'd love to talk to you.
You can say we have no locations. We're just getting started. We have experience, but we have nothing else. Isn't that section 19 of the FDD, right? People leave it blank. They don't want to say anything.
Our item 19 is, is blank and
because it gets you in trouble is what happens
Yeah. And listen, unfortunately, there's been a lot of abuse
that's the problem. Exactly. Right.
By franchisors.
Right.
And it's
making
put in there
and stuff
for good reason. So, but I tell people when I'm talking to them, listen, the laundry business standalone.
Yeah. It's not a new industry.
So I say, listen, I can't give you a projection. I can't give you performance history, but go look at a, local, small laundromat wash and fold operator for sale. Go talk to them, or go, you'll see that the business, even without the branding power and technology and pickup and delivery and all the, steroids that Mr. Jeff adds, even the business standalone is really strong.
Right.
And it's growing. So then you decide, like, okay, if I have somebody like Jeff supporting me,
right,
from a corporate scale and helping me with everything I don't know, and the efficiency of the marketing and the technology, am I going to be better off?
Right.
And so I say that don't just because we don't have years of history yet to look at.
Right.
Go do your own due diligence. You'll be very satisfied with the four corners of the box and its productivity and what the business model is. And then just listen to my pitch about what Jeff is going to do to support that and enhance that.
Yeah. Well, that's the smart way to go around about it, not make promises on the sly and say, oh, well, these guys do this, but don't tell anybody I told you, because it always gets them in trouble. Yeah.
People ask, like, it's not rocket science running it, but it's, you have to be a good operator. So the quality of the operator will make a huge difference in the box.
Yeah.
So if you are willing to do the work that's necessary and provide the leadership and build the right team and instill the right values in your culture of a service culture, and stay on top of it. You can't just build it, and you have to live. You have to believe in it and live in it, and
or you'll lose. You'll lose the people.
And if you do that, I think you'll be very happy in this business.
Now, I'm always curious from a strategic planning point of view. So you met them, you got to know them as an investor, and then you said, hey, I'd like to come on board, or they asked you, or I don't know what the whole course of events were, but did you sit down and write whatever it looked like a business plan, a strategic plan for the U.S. operation, like what this looks like, how are we going to get started, what this, and all the growth that the phases or however you're doing this to go forward?
Yeah, we had a pretty extensive business plan and Gantt chart and resources and timing of flow and strategy. So that was all done last summer. Yeah. And then we're in the early stages of implementation of that plan.
I think a lot of small business owners miss the value of, look, I'm not saying it should paralyze you. You never head towards town and get started, right? But I think they miss you can't implement something you haven't kind of thought out before. And a lot of them just start implementing things, and then you lose where you are and what you're trying to, especially this kind of an operation.
So it's interesting because I think there is a balance between, I think on one end of the spectrum, there's people that just plan and then they get paralysis of analysis because they see all the roadblocks ahead or potential roadblocks, and they say, this doesn't work, so we have to revise the plan, and they never get out of the gate. Right. And I've never seen a plan for a business, like as it starts, completely
never changes.
Right. It never changes.
Never.
So that's not the point of the planning. And I think
not the point.
The point is you have a plan, and that's the direction you're going. And then at each point in the plan, you're either succeeding, on a particular light item, you're behind schedule. So then you have to have a conversation. Why are we behind? Or why isn't this working? And is it we need more resources? Is it that the plan was off mark there? So each item you have a dialogue about, and then each aspect of the plan, some of it, you make individual changes. Most times there comes a point where you're 3 months in or 6 months in, and you're just really kind of stuck in the mud somewhere, and then you do this massive pivot.
Right.
But you only realize that from having the plan to begin with.
Right, because you know where you are and you're like, this isn't working. You got to change. It's a working document, and you got to always rework your plans. Look, nothing ever. I hate saying things like absolutely as a lawyer, but no business plan ever starts one place and ends up where you think you're going to go. It's not a straight line. It's just a question, like you say, of learning and making some mistakes or trying this out. But you're right. If you don't know where you were, it's very hard, almost impossible to you can't pivot if you have no idea where you are, what you're doing.
It's like keeping score. I played a lot of sports growing up. Like, imagine playing a football or a basketball game and
no game plan.
You had no game plan, and then they don't tell you what the score is.
Right.
So now it's the fourth quarter and the clock's winding down. You don't know, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to hold the ball? Do you want to run the ball to run out the clock? Or do you need to aggressively pass? You don't know because you didn't have a game plan to begin with. You're not measuring it on how you're doing, so you can't adjust.
Yeah, you're just blindly doing things, which a lot of people do. Thus the accidental entrepreneur. People they make decisions in a box with their eyes closed. It sounds weird, like looking back at it and your skills and what I've experienced and all the people I've interviewed, it doesn't make any sense to do that, but people do. They get, I don't know, they just think that it can work out and they do it. But look, that's why franchising is attractive to a lot of people. It's a business in a box, basically. You have somebody to walk you through, to help you, to call, to, follow the instructions, right? To put the furniture together. And
that's what we do. We're with the entrepreneur every step of the way. With they're not there they're not supposed to have this experience. Like that's okay, but they have to be open and willing to help. We help them guide through the experience. And I think another important aspect of the planning is, you mentioned this earlier with Shark Tank, which are more people familiar with, but at every stage in a company's life cycle, you need capital.
Right.
And when if you're starting with friends and family, maybe they're okay with not having a plan because they love you.
Right.
But as the business grows,
nobody's giving you money without a business plan.
Without a plan,
pitch deck and the whole thing, right?
And the more you understand your business, understand where you made mistakes, how you adapted, and can show that, the more credibility you're going to have to capital markets or potential investors in belief that you're going to be a good steward of their capital. Right. And if you watch Shark Tank, they drill these men and women on, or even sometimes teenagers on their business. And if they don't know their numbers and they don't know what they did and they don't understand where they're going, how they could, then the concept that they have is somewhat irrelevant.
Right. Because I understand they spend 3 or 4 hours with people. We only see short clips and stuff, but they spend a lot of time with them. Look, you and I both know the investor who's listening to your pitch deck, reading your business plan, he knows that whatever this is there's going to be bumps along the way. There's going to be roadblocks. There's going to be things that don't work. So they are investing in you and the fact that you seem like you understand what you're doing and you've taken the time to lay it out and all that kind of stuff. So it plays big in turn when it comes to raising capital.
I wish I was compensated just on ideas.
That would be nice, right?
I'd be a billionaire.
Right.
Like I've had ideas. I always say, I remember talking about the concept of Uber as I was waiting in New York City on New Year's Eve for a cab in the freezing cold. I'm like, they have apps, they're geolocated. Why can't I just, somebody wants a fare. Why can't,
And you're probably not the only one.
Right. No, but somebody went out and executed it.
Yeah. When I was at Cornell University, I graduated 89. So 85 to 89, we started this small company. We were freshmen it was called CRIS, the Computerized Ride Information System. And we realized that people were going home, they were traveling places, and there was no way they wanted to bum a ride from somebody, supposed to take in a bus, and they would connect on the bulletin boards and stuff. So we got shut down because the university said you can't run a business out of your dorm. And, we were young. We didn't know anything. Ironically enough, Lyft was started by two guys from Cornell. But there was no tech. This was in the late 80s. There was no technology whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, it's always about timing but you can't, it's a lot of it's execution, like you said, and you get credit. But I'm curious, where is Mr. Jeff now? Because there's no franchises near me. Are you guys just launching? You getting ready to launch? You're in some markets?
Our first franchisee is set to open next week in Coral Gables. So,
okay. And this will be coming out in a couple months. So today is what, March 11th? So next week sometime?
Next week, we're having a big grand opening. I'm going down there, very excited. I think it's going to be a dynamite location, and that's going to be a big boost because I think, listen, he's a brave entrepreneur to be the first, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have been waiting. They want to see one, they want to touch it, they feel it. So I think it's going to be really great, and that's going to launch a lot of pipeline of
you have a pipeline of applications.
Yeah, we have a lot of franchisees in the pipeline. So some sold where they're looking for spaces, but
right.
Others that are about to sell, but they're coming down to the grand opening.
What made you choose this guy in Coral Gables?
So he has a lot of experience in the hospitality industry, in restaurant services. So I happen to really like restaurant management experience for this business. I think it transfers really well. They're used to managing both the front of the house, hospitality, customer service, interface, on one level, and then back of the house, really tight operations and quality control.
That's a good observation, right?
Especially, pickup and delivery has become a huge part of food these days. So that experience helps. The marketing to consumers is very similar. The work ethic is very similar. And everyone I've brought over from the restaurant industry to the laundry industry has fell in love because they're used to running on very, very small margins in the restaurant industry. They're used to managing a huge staff, where this is much lower labor. They're used to dealing with a lot of waste. There's no waste in this business. It's you're not dealing with inventory. So they can put all their skills and tools to use, and but a lot of the things that they don't like about the restaurant industry don't exist here. So they're very happy. So he's Sergio is his name. He's a dynamic entrepreneur. I think well-versed in all the skills he needs. And I think he's going to be incredibly successful. So looking forward.
All right. Well, so people can, is it MrJeff.com? Is that the website?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's MrJeffApp.com.
MrJeffApp?
Yeah.
.com. Okay. So we'll put those links in the show notes. People are interested in getting franchise information. And they should watch for a Mr. Jeff coming near you as the business change. I know we talked about, I was seeing little Tide places popping up for a while. This was a couple of years ago, and then they kind of stopped. But I guess that's big corporate not executing well.
Yeah, that was also Tide cleaners. They were focused on
dry cleaning.
By the way, Mr. Jeff also does dry cleaning through a wet cleaning process. So it's doesn't have any of the perk. It's all natural. But it's sort of flipped where
that's not your core business. The laundry is your core.
Laundry is a stable, steady, repeat business. Everybody has to do laundry, once a week or sometimes once every 2 weeks, but where dry cleaners has become, it's a declining business. The frequency is less. So it's a much better customer acquisition model through laundry that you can then, get that steady clientele and then also provide all the dry cleaning services as they need it. So I think Tide came into the dry cleaning market probably at the worst possible time. It was like when the big, precipitous drop was coming. But like, listen, they're a powerful brand, and I think it was a smart move to leverage their brand. I just don't think their business model was set up in the optimal way.
All right. So some parting comments. Any advice, things that you've learned being a small business owner? I mean, you're a big business that runs small businesses.
I didn't mention this earlier, but I actually did own laundromats of my own personally. So okay. I certainly was a small business owner. So I got to see both sides of, the spectrum, from more of a corporate run enterprise and then running things on my own. It was actually really eye-opening because I ran the entire operations for the laundromat chain Clean Right. And I thought I knew everything about the business. And then when I acquired my first laundromat, I realized all the things I didn't know because it was much more hands-on, direct level. But advice to an entrepreneur standing out, I think you already hit on one of the key points: is develop a really good plan. Yeah. Understand that you're not supposed to know everything. So right. I would say seek advice from people with experience.
Right.
You don't have to take all of it, but very, very rarely do I speak to somebody with experience in certain sector where I don't have a couple of takeaways that are relevant and poignant, and I learn and grow from. Right. Read a lot, network, but then in terms of the operation of the business, I think that listen, always focus on the basics. Yeah. Take care of your customer, care about your customer. I think way too many people, especially in my business, don't really appreciate their customer.
Right, take it for granted.
That's who puts food on the table. Listen to them. And also your staff, especially nowadays. And I think there's been a lot of focus about pay, but I think that your staff are people. They're humans, and they want, more than anything, they want to be appreciated, recognized, and treated with respect and dignity as human beings. And when you do that, sometimes it's, especially in this business, and especially when you have to hire people on the lower end of the labor scale, right. Like, I'm always upfront with people. Like, this is not the place where you're going to get rich.
Right.
There's a cap to what the business is going to be able to pay you. But, right. But treating people with respect, dignity, and as and valuing them as human beings goes a long way, and they'll give you a lot in return when you do that. But it has to be genuine.
Well, I appreciate it. I guess we'll leave it there. Watch for Mr. Jeff. And Peter, thanks so much for joining me today.
Great. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Mitch.
If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Amazon Music, and many of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com. The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted and produced by me, Mitch Beinhacker. If you'd like more information about my legal services, you can find me on social media or visit my website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.